Today on the Locked On Hornets podcast, we evaluate the start to Brandon Miller's season, what's going wrong there. We rank LaMelo Ball among other point guards in the NBA, and then we'll preview tonight's game against Brooklyn, NBA Cup time. Again, can they get a win in group play? That's all today on Locked On Hornets.
You are Locked On Hornets, your daily Charlotte Hornets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
In a minute, cuz we live.
It's Locked On Hornets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day. Thanks for making us your first listen. We're free and available anywhere you get your podcast, and that does include YouTube. Today's episode, it's brought to you by Prize Picks. We appreciate them. Download the Prize Picks app today. Use code LOCKEDONNBA and get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. Prize Picks. Run your game. Your favorite podcast, Locked On Hornets, of course, now has a newsletter. Introducing the Locked On Hornets Daily Newsletter. One stop for ultimate team and league coverage delivered right to your inbox. Sign up for free now at LockedOnDaily.com. That's LockedOnDaily.com. Start your day with the all-new free Locked On Hornets newsletter. There's Doug Branson. He's writing it. It's EveryHornetsBoxscore.com's very own Doug Branson. You can text him there. You can also see him on Locked On NBA. He's doing a bunch of stuff. He's got a lot on his plate, but he's still doing Locked On Hornets, and we appreciate him for that. I'm Walker Mehl. Listen to me, WFNZ, every weekday from 12 to 3 p.m. Doug, the people are out here talking. Hornets community, they're wondering what's going on with Brandon Miller. And people saw him all the promise in the world last year. One of the best rookies in the game. Actually, pretty solidly the third best rookie behind Wemby. Generational, weird, freakazoid rookie. And Chet Holmgren, like a sophomore freakazoid rookie that just so happened to disguise himself as a first-year player. Right. This year, Brandon Miller, in just 9 games played. Remember, he didn't even play 13 like the team played because he had the left glute strain. But in 9 games played, he scored 15 points per game. He's shooting 35% from the field. He's shooting almost 31% from distance, 4 rebounds, almost 4 assists, a little over 1 steal. The efficiency, the scoring, it has not been good. He's getting about the same run. He's averaging 30 minutes per contest this year compared to the 32 minutes per game that he ran last year. I throw all of that at you, and what is your thought process surrounding Brandon Miller and the start to his second year in the NBA?
Yeah, he needs to shoot the basketball better. I mean, it's not a coincidence that he's struggling and the Hornets offense overall is struggling, despite LaMelo Ball consistently being amazing from the field and from 3. And a lot of people are going to point to his shot diet and how it's changed from last season. Charles Lee basically telling us that it was going to change in Summer League, saying that he was going to give him more opportunities or make him essentially take more threes. And he's done that. He just hasn't made as many. I will say, I looked at the last 2 games, and I thought his starts to those games were a lot better than the last couple. So Cleveland, Milwaukee, I thought he started much better than he did Orlando and Philly. And I mean, the last big moment that we've gotten from Brandon Miller was when he hit that game winner against Detroit. But then he followed that up with 29 points, 6 rebounds, 6 assists. That's been his best game of the season against Indiana. But, I look at the past 2 games, I don't see a guy that's playing scared. I don't really see a guy, honestly, that's playing too much in his own head. I just see a guy that's in a shooting slump right now, and he's got to figure it out.
Yeah, I went through this. We had a podcast that is now lost in the ether somewhere. It's in a bunch of little pixels that balance over us, and I went off just because I had a whole bunch of Brandon Miller thoughts, and because the Panthers are winning, I wasn't able to fire off some Brandon Miller thoughts there. I've been suppressed with my Brandon Miller thoughts because so many people are talking about why he isn't playing better. And what most of those people will tell you, Doug, is that it's because he's not getting to his mid-range spots anymore. It's because that he's not taking the mid-range attempts anymore, which I don't even, it wasn't true this last game. He did take 4 field goal attempts from the mid-range against Cleveland. I don't think you want really much more than that. Maybe you want 6. I don't know. I think 4 is fine. He hit 1 of them, so he was 1 of 4 there. The percentage not so good, but again, that's just as small a sample size as it gets. man, I'm not worried about Brandon Miller's shot not falling right now. I'm not worried at all. Like, one, there's a couple things working against him. Let's just not brush over the fact that the dude had an injury. So it's already hard for him to get into a rhythm.
Torn ass.
Matt Geiger injury through and through. He is also a good three-point shooter. We saw that his first year in the league, and we also saw that at Alabama. So it's okay that the three-point shot isn't falling right now. I'm much more worried about his lack of getting to the rim and finishing at the rim even still, which was a real concern coming out of college. But the shooting, like Charles Lee broke Brandon by having him take way too many threes, and he completely changed the way that Brandon wants to play basketball. This is what I go back to, Doug. He was the second overall pick for a reason. We wanted Scoot, raise my hand high, but Brandon Miller was the second overall pick, and if Scoot was taken second, Brandon would have been the third overall pick. So the reason that he was so highly regarded, and what was also regarded as a high draft class, a really nice draft class, was because of what he did at Alabama. And what he did at Alabama is make a ton of threes at 40% clip for a team that got to the number one overall seed in the NCAA tournament. In fact, what was something that was said used against him was that he didn't shoot a whole lot in the mid-range. That was a thing. We had to go all the way back to high school to say, well, he shot a bunch of mid-range jumpers there, but he didn't shoot a whole bunch of mid-range jumpers at Alabama. Is that something we should be concerned about? No, we should not. And you know what? He still ended up being the second overall pick and absolutely worth the second overall pick. Like, even in hindsight, we can say it was 100% the right selection. I'm not worried about Brandon Miller's shot. If anything, I'm just waiting for the other parts of his game to come along. But it's okay also that it's not here yet, just 9 games into his second season in the NBA.
Nobody worries about LaMelo's shot diet. He's taken the most threes in the league, like the most threes in the league. And nobody worries about that because he makes them. Like, if Brandon Miller were shooting moderately better, I don't think anyone would have a problem with this. And if he was shooting at the level that he was shooting last season, then the Hornets would probably have a winning record right now, to be honest. I mean, that's a whole thing on like LaMelo's, how well LaMelo is playing. If Brandon were playing a little bit better, and it would be interesting to see, like, you know, as we go through this season, how those two adjust to one another, because you have to remember, like, they haven't had a ton of time together because LaMelo was hurt for so much of last season. So they're going to have to navigate together, you know, how to share the offensive responsibility. And I thought earlier in the season, LaMelo was pressing a little bit and going after his own offense because guys weren't making shots. And Brandon Miller was a part of that. And so, you know, these things all have to sort of work in concert and come along together. But on the Lee changing his game, there are going to be growing pains, but you're growing. I mean, that's the whole deal. This season was about growth. It was about player development. It was about player evaluation. And I think we just have to give that time to season. I mean, I've got a little toddler running around right now. She's sprouting up like a weed. And all of a sudden she comes to me and says, the side of my foot hurts. And I feel bad that the side of her foot hurts. There was no trauma. She didn't fall. There was nothing to indicate. And I was like, oh, so I looked it up online. Beep, boop, 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 boop. It's a growing pain. Like, it's a common sign of kids that are growing. And so it's like, I feel bad for the kid that she's going through the pain right now, but I understand it's part of a larger process that ends up with her, you know, I mean, hopefully being, you know, 6 foot plus tall, put a ball in her hand. We're talking about WNBA. Yeah. Let's go.
Put her on the block.
But,
yeah, that's right.
That's right.
On the left block right there. Make sure you feed her some post entry passes.
Exactly. And so it's a process. And so that's what I'm saying. Like, if I really studied the film, and I did, and I saw a guy that was playing scared or playing in his head, then I would be worried about the whole Lee changing the game thing. But that's not what I see. I see a guy getting to the same spots he got to last season. I see him confidently going to the rim in the first quarter. It's that darn second and third quarter that are murdering him right now when his shots don't go down. And so, you know, I think I'm with you. I'm not worried about it. I think he's going to figure his game out. And we're not talking about this in a couple of weeks.
Well, and something we mention frequently when talking about the young players every year that they draft them, it's improvement being linear. Is it on an escalator? I took for granted Mark Williams seemingly having that same path until last year, where I thought there were some growing pains for the first time that I had seen a year after what we had seen the year before. Maybe Brandon Miller is the same thing, as I was talking about LaMelo, All NBA, Brandon Miller flirting with all-star level. Maybe we just don't get to Brandon Miller all-star level and we still get to Brandon very good. And then in the second half, maybe he's really taking that next jump. But we're so early into this. I've got some numbers I want to dive into with Brandon. Maybe we can do that on the other side of the break. But Doug, go ahead because you made a stank face. I want you to get your stank face takeoff before we move on.
Well, look, I don't buy the whole Lee changing his game thing that's going to like destroy him. If that destroys him, then he was going to be destroyed by something. Like he's got to be able to adjust to this, figure this out. Hopefully Charles Lee is the last coach he ever has. But, look at LaMelo. He's been through like 9 coaches and he's still a baller. Like you can't use that as an excuse. I'm sorry.
Well, no, and I don't know how much he's changing his game for the worse. That Cleveland game, you go back and watch it. I know it's just one, but also it's not like we have a lot to choose from. Man, what's the shot you don't like him taking? Point it out. Because LaMelo was setting him up. There was a lot of catch and shoot opportunities. For all the mid-range truthers, he took 4 of them. He only hit 1. It just wasn't going in. Ball wasn't going in the hoop. I got some numbers I want to get to. Coming up next on the Locked On Hornets podcast.
Bees everywhere!
That's the start to Brandon Miller's season. We'll finish some of those thoughts. Plus, we'll move on to LaMelo, who is balling right now, and talk about where he ranks in the NBA. That's all still to come on LOH.
And by the way, Scoot and Klingon looking pretty good right now. Just saying.
Oh, no, don't you. This episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. Prize Picks, we appreciate them every single year. They help us out. It's the best place to get real money sports action with over 10 million members and billions of dollars in award winnings. Billions with a B. Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 100 times your cash. Run your game all season long with Prize Picks. You can now win up to, again, 100 times your money on Prize Picks with as little as 4 correct picks. Prize Picks is the best place to get real money sports action. Join over 10 million users that trust Prize Picks today and sign up. Prize Picks use and puts their members first, so with all withdrawals, they're fast, safe, and secure. When your picks hit, you can get your money in as quick as 15 minutes. Prize Picks now also offers Venmo for quick and easy deposits and withdrawals into your account this sports season. Download the app today. Use code LOCKEDONNBA to get $50 off. I just wanted to make sure
10
I put some
times
emphasis.
5.
That's right. I wanted to make sure I put some emphasis on that. Download the app today. Use code LOCKEDONNBA to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Download the app today. Use code LOCKEDONNBA to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game. More Locked On Hornets ahead. Let's dive into the numbers here. The frequency, the accuracy, the nerd stuff, cleaning the glass, dunks and threes, all of it. If you look at the advanced metrics on where he's shooting his shot, yes, he's taking more shots from 3 this year. He took a lot last season. Like, it's not like this is so completely foreign to him because he did take a lot of 3s last year, but he is taking more clearly as the entire team is. He's taking more non-corner 3s. Really not many corner 3s, Doug. In fact, that's actually gone down from already the little diet he had from the corners anyway, but he's taking a lot more all 3s, non-corner 3s, and he's just not hitting them as much. When you go to the mid-range, maybe it's gone up a little bit even in the last couple of games. He's in the 59th percentile according to Cleaning the Glass when it comes to all mid-range shots. People who shoot the middies compared to everybody else at his position. He's like almost at the 60th percentile. That's totally fine. You go to dunks and threes. It's the same thing. In fact, maybe it's a little bit higher. The attempts per 75, it's 72nd percentile with Brandon Miller shooting mid-range attempts per 75 possessions. He's in the 70th percentile. Like, Doug, he's still getting there a little bit. Like, more so than your average mid-range jumper even. So, Brandon, it's going to be fine for Brandon. The thing, if you're really worried about him, it's like, I don't know how much more I've trusted him with the basketball in his hands this year, creating plays for others, which we've documented a couple of times. Like, I actually worry about that a little bit more. Again, it's when he gets a lot of space and then jumps off the launching pad, watch out because he's going to dunk on you. That's the fun part. But if you don't give him much space to operate, then it's Dean Wade for Cleveland shutting off a driving path, and that's how so many of those possessions stall out at the elbow. But instead of just forcing some of those mid-range jumpers up, now he's forced to kick it out because that's the style of offense. And honestly, if that's the change that Charles Lee institutes, then I'm here for it. I would rather Brandon kick that out if a possession gets stalled right there at the free throw line with somebody right on his hip. Maybe he can finagle and maneuver the defender. He is good at that to get a shot off, but like that's kind of how it is right now. I'm not saying there are no concerns with Brandon, but those are the concerns I have compared to what seemingly everybody else has about the mid-range jumper.
Yeah, for sure. And I would just tell you, like, over the last 2 games, I've seen a lot better playmaking. I've seen a lot better driving. I've seen a lot more decisive play from Brandon Miller. The shots just weren't falling. That's like, I came into this show ready to be like, whoa, I'm like super worried about Brandon Miller. Like, what is going on?
Yeah.
And I just looked at those 2 games and I went, oh, that's not really what's going on.
Right,
he may have been in that funk, because you look at the 2 prior games to 3 games ago and 4 games ago, when he was like scoring 0 points in the first quarter. He looked a little bit passive, only scored 8 points in that one game. So like there was that issue. I think he's figured that out, and now the shots just got to fall. And they have to fall particularly when LaMelo Ball is off the floor. And because those lineups with Brandon Miller, Cody Martin, and Trey Mann, when Mann's been healthy, have been really good. Like the one with those 3, Diabate and Grant Williams, is a plus 29 in net rating. It is
that
awesome
sounds like a sicko
offensively.
lineup.
It is, because it's awesome offensively when Mann has it going, and it would be even better if also Miller had it going. And then defensively, that's a shut him down lineup. So yeah, I think it's really important for him to get a shot going. And that's why the struggles in the second and third quarter, I think, have particularly hurt the Hornets offense overall, is because that is going to be time when Brandon Miller sees the floor when Ball doesn't.
Yeah, I guess if you're talking about what typical NBA teams do and or what typical NBA teams should do, the ones that have 2 stars, it's you always want one of them out there on the floor, starting both of them, closing both of them, but always one of them out there. If Brandon gets to that star level, then you always want either LaMelo or Brandon handling the basketball, or Brandon playing his role much better once he figures out what that is. So that would be the nice thing to see develop. We've got one for sure. We've got a bona fide star in LaMelo when he's on the court. There's no doubt about it. It's not a for sure thing with Brandon, even if you are optimistic about it, like I am. It's not for sure right now, and that would be awesome to see it come to fruition. You do have one, though, with LaMelo, and if he's a star, then that means he ranks pretty high among his peers. Doug, talk to us. LaMelo's rankings according to whatever publications, according to Every Hornets Boxscore. Give us your own ranking of LaMelo and how he compares to his peers at the position and just maybe in that star class.
I don't really have a publication. I just wanted to kind of chat with you about it, where your head was with LaMelo Ball in terms of his ranking overall. I mean, if you look at just sort of where he's leading in usage, he's leading in 3-point attempts, he's leading the league in overall field goal attempts, I think, per 36. So he is definitely getting his shot up. Assist percentage is strangely, like, I don't think he's even top 20 in the league, but he is top of the league in turnovers. So I think that's, stuff we've been talking about all season. He's got to control the turnovers. He was pressing a little bit early on. That was leading to the turnovers. And, I think more and more he's starting to find other guys, particularly in the first quarter. I think that's led to some good looks for Brandon Miller that's allowed him to play a little bit better. But, I mean, when you look at his true shooting percentage, I mean, I think he's better than Doncic. He's been more available than Lillard. I think Fox just recently has eclipsed LaMelo for sure. I mean, he put up like 109 over 2 games, almost won Sacramento that game against Atlanta last night. I think you have to put Garland over Ball. So I would put Fox over Ball. I'd put Garland over Ball because of what he's been able to do with Cleveland, 15-0. Steph is playing at a like crazy level for his age. He's like looking like LeBron level at his age. And so I'd put Curry. Shea is where it gets interesting. Like, I got 3 guys over Ball right now. And I'm just talking about season production. Like, I think if Morant were fully healthy, you'd probably still put him over Ball. But I'm just talking about in terms of raw production this season. I've got really 3, maybe 4 if you want to throw SGA in there over him. But I got him over Brunson. I got him over Doncic. I got him over Lillard. Yeah, I don't know many others.
Yeah, I mean, I think with Darius Garland, the efficiency on, I guess, smaller volume for Garland, that's the thing. Like, what do you value most? Is it the fact that he plays with an undefeated team that is, has good players all around him, and he's just capitalizing on that? Because overall, yeah, LaMelo's a better player than Darius Garland, just overall, but this year Darius is playing really well. SGA, same thing. Even this year, I would take SGA, defense, assist, getting guys involved as well. I would still take SGA, especially with his ability to finish in the paint too. But I think you are talking about LaMelo being in that like all NBA fringe. So if we're talking about where he ranks among point guards playing today, like I was actually looking at some of the rankings with LaMelo's offensive season and where that compares to other great Hornets offensive seasons.
Yeah, look, if we just want to talk offense, I don't know that I'm putting anyone above LaMelo at this point. That's his offense has been incredible.
Well, and I'm looking at just former Hornets. Are we in store for the best offensive season of all time in Hornets history? Like if he plays the 65 game allotment, that's absolutely on the table. Doug, he's top 5 in scoring right now. So if he finishes top 5, top 6, top 7. Honestly, don't think there's any reason for this to stop. I guess depending on, look, you got Brandon out there still. He's putting up a lot of shots, but LaMelo is still able to eat. Miles is out there too, even though there's been some missed time. So LaMelo's still able to eat. So let's just say LaMelo finishes top 5 or top 7. I go back to that Kemba Walker All-NBA year. Kemba was 12th in the NBA in scoring, and he was averaging 25.6 points per game. You can go back to Glenn Rice, where he wasn't averaging, I think he was averaging like close to 25, but that was on the ridiculous shooting at a very different time in the NBA. But like LaMelo, if he continues this and does it for that 65 game threshold, this is number 1, Doug. This is the best offensive season we've ever seen in Hornets history.
Sorry, I'm getting distracted because I'm looking at points per shot attempt for point guards right now. I'll just tell you, LaMelo Ball, 70th percentile, tied with Ben Simmons. The usage is going to be pretty wildly different there.
Different.
But
Talk about shot diet, a little bit different there.
But that's not what I was laughing at. I was laughing painfully at Scoot Henderson, who is in the 9th percentile, 4th worst, 96.2 points per shot attempt. But just up the list from him, up the list, I guess, down the list, however you want to look at it, Terry Rozier, 24th percentile at 102.6 points per shot attempt. Things have not gone as well as I'm sure he would have liked there in Miami, but they continue to soldier on.
So, look.
That was unhelpful to you. I'm sorry. It's
okay.
Just saw those names and I had to mention it.
No, I mean, it was helpful for you because you brought up Scoot. I was like, is Scoot balling right now? Maybe he had one game.
Well, I think he's got a good connection with Klingon from what I've seen.
Gotcha.
Overall, yeah, it's been a struggle for him. No doubt about it.
Weird flex, but fair enough. Klingon is probably the guy that most people are focusing on. Yeah, man, LaMelo top 5 right now in scoring, and it's God, he could just take it to like some super duper galaxy if there was just more efficiency inside that 3-point arc, man. But the floater's working for him. The floater's really
it was against Cleveland for sure. Yeah, that was one of the things that went down in the notes. When the floater is working for him, I think in the last episode I said he slept walked a 31-point game. When the floater's working for him, he can do that. When it's not, it's got to be the 3-point shot. It's got to be him. Occasionally he's having these 10+ free throw attempt games. That certainly helps. And they've got Brooklyn tonight, and I think there's going to be a lot of scoring in this game. Hopefully the Hornets offense can get back on track, and hopefully NBA Cup competitive game against Brooklyn, a team that they should match up decently with. Hopefully we get a 40-point game for LaMelo. I want it so bad, and I want it in a game that's competitive. I don't want him to get it in trash time. So
the gods refuse. They will not let it happen. It's actually ridiculous at this point. What's going to happen is he's so averse to scoring 40 points that he's going to score 50. He's going to bypass 40. You're not going to see that 4 in that 10 spot. And instead, he's just going to score 50, which will be great and welcome, but he's not going to score 40 in his entire career. It's just not going to happen. He's going to score 50, 60, maybe he even gets to 70. 40 ain't going to happen.
Well, he's not going to do it if he continues to pick up fouls in garbage time. Like, he's not even going to get the garbage time 40 if he doesn't stop picking up these fouls. He fouled out against Cleveland. Again, it was like a nothing. The Cleveland game was kind of already over, but he's still got to watch it. I mean, I talked about how many categories he's leading the league in right now. He's also leading it in total fouls. Like, he is accumulating a lot of fouls, and he's still doing the thing. This is when I know he has a tell. It's like in poker when you have a tell, do you have a good hand or a bad hand? I can tell when LaMelo takes a shot that he knows he should not have taken, because he took a deep three against Cleveland that he should not have taken. There was like 19 seconds on the shot clock. It was ridiculous. It wasn't even a transition. They somehow got the ball up the floor quick, had an opportunity to run a play, didn't. He took a deep three. It was way off. He immediately goes for the transition steal. And sometimes that results in the foul, sometimes it doesn't. But either way, it leads to a 5-on-4 for the opposing team. It's bad offense, it's bad defense, but that's always the tell. When you know LaMelo knows that it was a bad shot is when he goes for that immediate steal.
You can tell when he knows it's off when he crashes, it follows his shot. Classic.
That's
right?
Great.
He's so good.
I
know, but he's so good at following his shot. I mean, the coaching, shout out to LeVar on that one, because he is so good at following his shot, better than anybody that I see anytime I watch the Hornets play whoever else. It's LaMelo constantly going after his shot, which is fun. All right, that'll do it for the second segment. Coming up next on the Locked On Hornets podcast.
Bees everywhere!
More Emirates NBA Cup talk. It's the second game for the Hornets after getting destroyed. Orlando did that to them just last week. New week, new game, new vibes. They play Brooklyn tonight. Can the Hornets get it done? We'll discuss it, preview that one coming up next year on LOH. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Get ready to tackle the second half of NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because right now, new customers can bet $5. You can get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL, all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. More Locked On Hornets ahead. All right, Brooklyn tonight, Doug. The Nets are on a 3-game losing streak, but it actually hasn't been as bad as most people thought for them. They're 5-9 after a 3-game losing streak, which means that they were winning at a decent pace before. They have wins against the Grizzlies twice. They beat the Bulls earlier this year. They also have a win on the road against the Pelicans. What this tells me is that the Nets are a group above some of the most injury-ridden and most tankathon teams in the NBA. So they're going to beat the teams, I guess, except for Memphis, that has their talent back with Ja Morant. So they got the better of Memphis a couple times. But this feels like maybe Brooklyn isn't just going to go all the way to the bottom of the standings and be number one, have the best odds in the Cooper Flag sweepstakes. What are you thinking about their game against Brooklyn tonight, and if the Hornets can take care of business?
A very winnable game, I think. I mean, they're both, the Nets are without Claxton for sure. I think they're without Day'Ron Sharpe, both of those centers. So I think the Hornets can get they weren't a great rebounding team to begin with. I think they can get, a serious rebounding advantage. Can they get back to crashing the glass offensively the way we saw them do earlier in the season when they were able to put up some bigger offensive numbers? It was because they were able to exploit second chance points along with moving the basketball a little bit better. That's what I want to see in this game. Like, regardless of matchups, whatever, like, you've got to find a way to shut down Cam Thomas. Obviously, he is, even more so than in previous seasons when he was already great. I mean, just as an ISO scorer, he is amazing. They're going to have to try their best to slow him down. But beyond all of the matchups, I think the Hornets offensively have to figure out how to move the ball effectively in the half court and get into their stuff quicker. Like, they can do all they want to in terms of getting the ball into transition, upping the pace. I think that's good. They can do all they want to in terms of generating second chance points, second chance opportunities. But if they're not able to effectively and quickly get into their stuff, and they're getting shot clock violations and they're getting out of rhythm, then that's just going to hurt them overall. So they've just got to do a better job of that. They've figured out the turnover situation. That was killing. They were killing themselves, and they figured that out. But it's come at the expense of the ball stopping, and so they can't. I think overthinking is happening across the board, whether it comes to Coach Lee maybe overthinking not playing Moussa Diabate in that last game enough, or Brandon Miller maybe overthinking things a little bit in terms of his shot selection. They've just got to they got to shake it off, play a little bit more free. It's the NBA Cup. Let's go.
Yeah, I mean, get some rebounds in this game. The starters for Brooklyn, you're talking Cam Thomas, Ben Simmons, Dennis Schroeder, Cam Johnson, Dorian Finney-Smith. No centers, no real centers in that whole starting lineup. So you're talking about an opportunity for Moussa Diabate to grab some boards here. That would be phenomenal if that was the case. Let the moose loose, baby. I'm ready for it. What's funny about Brooklyn is if we've already talked about one draft miss on our part, somebody that I liked a lot as well, it seems like Brooklyn is hoarding all of the draft misses of Walker's past. I'm looking at Zaire Williams. Love me some Zaire Williams back in the day. And Keon Johnson, who I also love. Both are playing on the bench. So I'm glad that Brooklyn gave them a second life. I appreciate Brooklyn for that. Even though they're still on the bench, I appreciate them for giving those guys a second life. Speaking of the bench, Doug, I think this is where the bench, it would be nice to win that battle. I don't care who's playing for the Hornets. I don't care if Trey Mann's not out there. This is a game where the bench, it would be nice for the Hornets to have that advantage because I think you can get one over. Like the starting lineup, Doug, it's pretty talented, and you got defenders. It fits well together, outside of the Ben Simmons weirdness. I actually really like that starting lineup in terms of like a fun NBA hipster, let's throw this out there and see what happens. So I could see the starting lineup being effective on both ends of the floor against this squad. It would be nice again for this bench to show up because I think they can create a real advantage there.
Yeah, so the starting lineup this season with Grant Williams at center, LaMelo Ball, Josh Green, Miles Bridges, Brandon Miller. They've played the most minutes of any lineup this season, 45 minutes. They're a -4, net rating of only -2.8. So they're not, they're hanging in there, and they have played some tough competition this season. And offensive rating of 135.9, so they're scoring enough. It's been defense that's been the issue, 138.7. So again, what can they do, particularly in like the first 6 or 7 minutes of the game, to try to take Cam Thomas out of his rhythm without allowing 1,000 3-point shots from the other players on? I mean, that's going to be the challenge. That's what Lee has to draw up. Because if you let Cam Thomas score 10 points in that first 6 or 7 minutes, you are going to be in for a long night. So let's see what they do.
Yeah, the Cam Thomas interview, I remember him having like a weird interview with the Hornets, but Mitch Kupchak strangely liked him. That was one of the more memorable NBA pre-draft interview stories that I heard, and now he's killing it for Brooklyn. He's been crazy this month. Once we got to the turn to November, this season he's been very good, but even this month the guy is just going in fuego.
A guy in that kind of mold that Mitch Kupchak did end up drafting that is not in fuego right now is Nick Smith Jr. Can't find playing time, right. Just got an assignment to Greensboro. What do you think about that? People are lamenting that a little bit.
He's not playing. He's not playing. Find some time for him to play. This is totally fine. This is his, second year in the NBA? So it's okay for him to go to Greensboro and go down there and find some run. I'm totally fine with that. So how are you feeling about Nick Smith Jr. going to the G League?
Not great. Because, we looked at the rotation after Summer League when he wasn't shooting the basketball well and said, man, if everybody's healthy, it's going to be really tough for Nick Smith Jr. to find some time. Well, everyone wasn't healthy. Like, Mann hasn't been healthy. Micic has been terrible. So it's like there was an opportunity for Nick Smith Jr. to jump into the lineup and didn't. And I think a lot of people would look at that and go, what's your problem, Charles Lee? Play the guy. You can't. You don't know unless you play them. Well, look, they practice. They've seen enough of Nick Smith Jr., I think, to make a decent understanding of what he can give you and what he can't. And even in the limited minutes that we've seen him, he hasn't shot the ball particularly well. So, yeah, I just think it's tough when you're undersized for a 2 and under skilled for a 1 at playmaking, and you're not shooting the basketball well. That means you're gonna spend some time in the G League.
Yeah, that's fair. I guess I was thinking early, not getting playing time, making sure that he can work through it. Do I have a problem with the Hornets' decision to send him down there? I thought that's kind of where I was going, but you're right.
No.
Not a good sign. Not a great sign for him.
I don't have a problem with it. I have a problem with
right.
I have a problem with really, and people know this if they've watched the show enough, if they're the everydayers, they know that I have a problem. My main problem with Nick Smith Jr. is that he's not Jalen Duren. And that's not anything that Nick Smith Jr. can control. That's not Nick Smith Jr.'s fault. But, this organization has never proven that they can do anything with a guy like Nick Smith Jr. This is Malik Monk sort of all over again. They just haven't been able to unleash that type of player.
Once a month, you got to hit your quota with the Malik Monk reference. Once a month. All right, that'll do it. Thanks for joining us, making us your first listen here on Locked On Hornets, a part of the Locked On Podcast Network. There's Doug Branson, everyhornetsboxscore.com. Find him there. Find him on Locked On NBA. Also text him when you find that information on everyhornetsboxscore.com. I'm Walker Mehl. Listen to me, WFNZ, every weekday from 12 to 3 p.m., also on the WFNZ app. Have a great rest of your day. We'll be back with you tomorrow to recap the Brooklyn NBA Cup game.